Hi everybody, welcome to our new show. This is Studio B with me, Billy Maloy, and it's conversations with people that are important in the DMV and elsewhere. Today's our very maiden voyage and our first episode ever, and we have President and founder of Speak Out Incorporated and your future senator, he's a candidate for Senate in District 26 in Maryland, Antonio Driver.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being my first guest.
I'm honored. I'm so honored.
How many years ago did we meet?
I feel like it was either 10, 11, maybe even 12.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah,
and was that the Christmas party?
First.
A friend of mine has a huge Christmas holiday party every year, and I would do photos in the basement, and I got to meet a lot of people, and that's how we became associated at first. And then I started doing green tea, and you started doing Speak Out.
Yeah, so we were doing Speak Out Live. So Speak Out used to have a lot of people don't realize we used to have a show where we would go live.
We all did, right?
Yeah.
We had weekly shows
Yeah.
that did really well. I mean,
it was fun. It was definitely, that was a moment of the Facebook Live shows and stuff like that, which, helped us shape where we are now a little bit, yeah.
But you took it in different directions. So you started the monetization and the professionalism behind that. You met with Facebook people and everything. You did it on a different level. How did that happen?
So really what happened was we had a Facebook group. We still have a Facebook group called Speak Out. It's about 8,000, a little bit over that now.
People are really active.
Yeah, and they're still active. And someone reached out, I guess from the back end, and saw the algorithms of like how the group was moving. And a person reached out and said, hey, we would love to talk to you about working with you. You seem like you have a very active group, a very interesting group of people and topics. And so we met, we had some conversations. I did some work with them. I've been to their headquarters in Berlin, Germany. They flew me out.
Oh, wow.
Met at the time Mark Zuckerberg.
I remember when you did all that.
Yeah, so it definitely played a part in shaping where we are now.
Yeah, because I was pleasantly jealous at the time. Like, I wasn't hating. Like, I was so glad that, everybody was, you know what I mean? I didn't care about it. I wanted everybody to succeed at the time.
I think everybody landed where they needed to land, or or open the doors. It was for us, it was fun. It was about just having conversations and making impact in the community.
How did that evolve into where I am and all that?
Well, people don't realize Speak Out is an actual nonprofit 501c3, and we've always been a nonprofit organization.
What's your mission statement?
Our mission is to educate and support the LGBTQIA+ community through advocacy, healthcare, and health economics. Yes. I know I messed it up because I haven't said it in so long, but yes, it is to support the LGBTQIA+ community of color. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, and so we've had grants with the state of Maryland to do a lot of work around health awareness, HIV, bringing people who were lost to care back into care. We've had grants working in the DC public school with their truancy population. So we've had a lot of different grants. Still have a few programs where we're working with the homeless, a trans population right now, and we do some work there too.
How are you keeping your chin up with all the anti-DEI stuff? You know what I mean? Like, it's literally people working against you.
I think we've always been prepared for this. We, as the LGBTQI+ community, have always been prepared.
Not new.
This is not nothing new. I think we got spoiled for a minute, or we got relaxed, and this is the time for us to say this is not new to us. We just got to pull out our old boots and start finding innovative ways to address things. And it's unfortunate that we are in the administration that we have right now that is totally against us, and it makes it hard for not just organizations like mine, but even federally, the funded programs and essential things that are needed for not just LGBT people, but just people in general. So I think we're getting ready to go through an interesting time, but I believe that when you set our mission, when you set out to do the work, you have to get innovative, and if it's going to be about the community, it's going to take the community to sustained, and you know everybody's feeling the burn. We are too. You know, you kind of spoke about the IM Awards a little bit, and so you know initially we were going to have the awards. We were going to move it to Atlanta.
How did it go from? But first, before where it's headed, right? Because I know just what just happened.
Yeah.
But I mean, how did it go from like online show to community activism to awards show?
Yeah, so we always
recognized an award show.
Yeah, it was always my plan to bring an award show. I went down to Atlanta, Georgia, to what was called the Gentleman's Ball at the time in Atlanta, Georgia. Shout out to Lana G. And this was in 2016. And I kid you not, I ran into Raheem Briggs. Project Briggs, and I saw him down, and he always remembers this conversation every time I see him.
Because he was doing the Power 30 and all that.
Yeah, right? It was somewhere around that time. But this was 2016, 2015. I ran down, and I was down there, and this was before Speak Out was what it was. I think we were still kind of. This was maybe before the live show, and I was like, we need something like this in DC, and he said, yeah, we got to pull it together, and make it happen. And of course. Actually, we were going to do the IM Awards the year COVID set in. That was going to be the first year it took place, and of course, the board of directors, we had everything planned, and then COVID stopped. So, and it wasn't going to be nearly as big as the actual first one. So, I guess that was a blessing in disguise. And so I snuck and did it because I was at the time working full time for Speak Out. I was the executive director when the first actual IM Awards came out, and the board had voted against me doing it. However, I was, as the executive director, I was over programmed, so I just made a program of Speak Out, and so by the time it was out, they couldn't say anything, and now we're like, we got to continue to do it. Yeah. So it fell in place. I had a lot of support from Facebook at the time, and different organizations, and family.
Well, the first one, I was honored to be in the photo shoot, but you chose a lot of icons in the area.
Yeah.
And that was amazing.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to make sure that people understood that this was not just about Speak Out. This was about the community. This was about, the people who had giants, whose shoulders I stood on, and was kind of okaying. Hopefully they were okaying me doing it, in the way we've done it.
So tell me about that first one. How was that for you? Because you had Vivica Fox there. You had, names.
Yeah, so people don't understand the IM Awards is a lot of work. A whole lot of work, a whole lot of politics and things behind the scene. People have no clue all of the work. But I had a friend who's still one of my just closest friends. He had worked in Sheen magazine, and so he was an editor-in-chief. So he has a large Rolodex of just talent that he's connected to, and he had a really close relationship with Vivica Fox. And I was like, is there a way you can get Vivica Fox to agree to host the IM Awards for me? And he worked it out, and of course she came, and nice. She's an amazing person, very motherly, very supportive.
She was so nice in person.
Yes.
Everybody was nice. That's one thing I love about the IM Awards. There's no pretension. Everyone's like, hey, how are you?
Yeah, and I think that's where we really want the IM Awards to represent who we are as an organization, who I am. I try not to be pretentious or I'm unapproachable or anything like that. And so the IM Awards came. It's a lot of work, a lot of fundraising. It was bigger than what I expected it to be. I didn't know what people were going to think. A lot of people didn't know what in the first year what they actually were coming to.
I mean, I guess I know award shows. Yeah. I wasn't surprised by that at all. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It was just, you had good food, you had the big, IM Awards, the sign that you have. I was like, the awards themselves were lovely. I was like, you did you paid attention to a lot of good details.
Yeah, thank you. And so, and of course we went on to year 2 and year 3, and now we are in year 4.
But it's one of those things that a lot of people in the area are really excited about. So we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back and talk about some more things.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Maybe there'll be a commercial break in there. I don't know. But we were talking about the IM Awards, and where are they now?
So the IM Awards initially was going to go to Atlanta. We're going to try in Atlanta, but with the current administration and different things, we're going to bring it back to DC this year.
I'm really glad you're keeping it DMV for me.
And it's going to be April 25th, 26. So
Okay.
not even actually a full year. So about 10 months. Versus it was going to be in September, but with everything happening, we financially, we even like I said, we felt it.
But what I gotta say is, even though you're so busy with it, you're still open. Because I've called you and said, "Hey, who's a good ally?" Blah blah blah, and you're always welcoming and to information.
Because it's ultimately, we created, it was a vision, but it's everybody's award. It's not about Antonio. It's not about speaking. It is about the community and the work that we do. And to acknowledge us. There's not enough spaces and places that acknowledge us. I mean, you have a couple, but I think we need more, because there's so many years of decades of people who have not been acknowledged and who have gone on who weren't acknowledged. And we want to be able to do that as much as we can. We don't always get it right on who we should honor first or whatever, but I think we've honored and acknowledged some amazing people.
No, you have. I don't think there's no should or shouldn't. Like you, and I know a little behind the scenes stuff. Like, I mean, it depends on who answers the phone.
Yeah, and then
because you reach out to folks, so they're not there. They're not there.
They don't answer, or they
don't respond,
or they want $1 million that we don't have to get them in the room, and it's like, so
right. Who's willing to work with you?
Yeah, we are always looking for who's willing to work with us, because our budget is not always. And you heard me say, like we had to rethink how we were moving. Initially, it was supposed to be this September. In Atlanta, but we are taking it back to April, which was initially our month anyways, and it'll be in DC, actually at the first hotel that we did it at.
Around 14th Street.
Yeah.
So how did this transitioning, how did it go from speak out to you're a candidate for Senate? I didn't know political aspirations there. Not surprised knowing you, but I didn't know that was on your list.
So I've always been enthused and had a niche for politics. So growing up I'm from Flint, Michigan. So growing up, I lived across the street from the state representative, and he and his wife were mayors. They ran for county council. City council. They did a ton of things, and so every summer, I would help them on their campaigns, putting literature and stuff on their doors, and I always just loved his wife. She was a state representative, and she did a ton of things, and so I always had that niche. And in high school, I was the student council president, so I've always been in a role of change, and I thought I had to go back to Michigan to run. That's where I thought I was going to leave DC at some point and go back home and figure it out there and really help. However, now the county executive, who is now U.S. Senator Angela Alsobrooks, was my direct boss. 2 years ago, she appointed me as Prince George's County's first LGBTQI+ liaison. So that put me right in the center of what was happening in Prince George's County, in the center with all of the players, the council people, senate, and different things like that. And I started to think about it like, no, there's change that needs to be done right here where I am. And when she left, I already had in my mind that I was going to run. When she left and went to the U.S. Senate, I decided that I wanted to go into the school system, because that's a big talking point about how our school system is moving. And I've spent the last year working in the school system as an educator.
Nice.
Just to really understand what the staff are dealing with, what the students are dealing with, what the families are dealing with. And I was very strategic about what part of the county I wanted to live in, or move to really do the work, because I was, in DC for a while, and I saw District 26, which is your Oxon Hills, your Temple Hills. There's a piece of Suitland that is a part of it, piece of Clinton, but primarily Oxon Hill, Fort Washington, Camp Springs, Temple Hill. And that was the area where I felt just needed the most representation and just had a lot of work that needed to be done. And so then it was like, what do I run for? And I started to think about, where the most impact could be made from my perspective. And I researched for years on what made the most sense. And so this wasn't anything that just popped up today.
I didn't think it was.
No.
That's what I'm asking. Like, how did you?
And so then it was, talking to some of my political friends, people who are elected, about, what they thought and what they feel. And then we landed with my team now, and hey, we're going to run for a state senate. That was initially what I wanted to do anyways, and then I pulled back and decided I wanted to do something different. And then I got a phone call about 3 months ago and said, no, this is what you're going to do, and this is why. And so that's where we are. There's a lot of work that needs to happen in the state. I don't like to look at myself as a politician, because that's not who I am. I'm a community member concerned and wanting to make change. And I think that this is a people-driven campaign. And so it's made, when we're talking about education, I want people who work in education, who maybe are at the school board meetings in the county, in the district, talking about their concerns. So that is what that's made of people who are really experts in that, and then healthcare and so on. So those are those people. You don't have to be this political person and the landscape. We have some people who know the landscape and can play with numbers and the talking points and all that. But this campaign is really built off of experts, subject matter experts in their area. If that makes sense.
How do you differentiate yourself from another Democrat, especially an incumbent one with who's in there now?
Senator Muse.
Muse, yes.
How do I differ? I mean, so I think he's great. Let me start by saying I think he's great. I think that I don't agree with a number of things that he puts forth. But
for example,
he voted against the Marriage Equality Act. I mean, it's here now. But I mean, I think that his focus is where his focus is. It's not on District 26. I think that I am more progressive thinking and in touch and willing to listen. I think that I want people to feel like they can come talk to me. I'm approachable. I'm accessible. And I think people are ready for something different. He's been in office 30 years.
So you'll show up at town halls.
Yeah, and have them.
and
actually have them too. So and that's what we're doing now. Yesterday I was out with a group of women, a group of people who were just upset about the litter, who would know that litter is like one of the top concerns in this district. And we went out yesterday and was cleaning up, but I was talking to them while cleaning up, picking up the trash, about their concerns and their issues. And these are things that we want our elected officials to do, not just get in office, because you're only in session for 3 months. And then the rest of the year you are out. What you should be doing is out engaging the voters. You should be doing...
You're only in session 3 months? That's like when the actual implementing
3 months.
Policies shows up?
3 months of the year.
Huh.
Yeah.
That seems a little imbalanced.
No, it's 3 months.
For what's needed, you know what I mean? Like,
granted, yeah, so 3 months, that's it, and then the rest is you should be engaging your voters. You should be looking at
what's going on.
Talking to the people who didn't vote, building that base of people, and also looking at, when I get in, you got 3 months to put all these legislations through that you want to push through. Talking to other senators, hey, how can we work together? If that's not happening, you're weak, and District 26 shows.
And you're good at building relationships. Yeah. I've already seen that firsthand. We've talked about an issue that I want to get to, but what do you see as litter is a big issue? What else do you see right in that specific district that you're like, I'm going to attack these things?
Yeah, so I've already met with a lot of constituent groups. One of the biggest things is a lot of the towns are incorporated. A lot of Fort Washington is a really not incorporated, but they want representation. If they had the representation that they needed, the trash and the grass and the things that they're talking about could be put together. And what I mean by incorporation, meaning that they don't have a mayor, they don't have their own city council. Yeah. And one of the things that I want to do is put forth like a study so that they can understand the impacts of what that would look like if they wanted to move into incorporation. The biggest thing is what's the taxes going to be like? What's going to cost me? And I think that I'm all for representation, but I want informed representation. So that's one thing. I think that the businesses down there, they talk about, a lot of people talk about it's a food desert in a sense, like the grocery store options. There's not a lot of healthy food options.
So you're like a downtown? or Main Street?
I mean, you talking the MGM and the
so
the MGM and National Harbor and
right,
that. But then the people who live in that area, that surrounding area, can't afford to
No,
go
they're
there.
not going to MGM for dinner.
Yeah, and then it's $20 not at the MGM, but the National Harbor is $20 to park. And I'm thinking about the families that are there. You know, you can't. You know, we really have to look at that.
And supporting an infrastructure that creates more businesses and whatever.
Yeah, and I'm really focusing on the economy down there and how do we attract more businesses to that district. We have the land, we have the space, and we have the economic structure, but how do we attract them to the district? But then we go into the school system and we're looking at families aren't moving there because they look at, Prince George's County in general, they're looking at our school system and it's failing, and you're looking at the crime rate and the different things. So how are we improving that? And I don't think our people are looking in the area and talking and listening to the constituents who vote them in. You're voted in to be the voice of the people there now. Like I said, I think that they were great for the time that they have been there. But I think it's time. We are in a different world. 30 years ago, some of this might have made sense. Now we need something different. And we don't want. And this is what we're seeing across the country, where you're seeing tons and tons of these incumbents who've been there for years being challenged by New York City is a great New York City mayor's race is a great picture of what is getting ready to come. Yeah. So and it's going to continue.
What do you think? Because I know what my concern in Maryland when I started. Now that I have my own small business, and I realized that there's no retail protections for anybody for any small business. They could call tomorrow. It doesn't matter what your lease says. Residential renters have protection. You can't change their rent without going through court, right? Businesses, they could change it tomorrow, and there's nothing I could do. And that's why, especially in Silver Spring, a lot of businesses you see for a year and then they're gone. Hi everybody, welcome back. We took a little quick break. We're talking to Antonio Driver, candidate for Senate in District 26 in Maryland, founder and president of Speak Out Incorporated. And I just was asking you about small business protection and small businesses because I've had an ongoing battle, not pleasant interactions with the city council here. That I've reached out to them, and the response was, "We're not looking at that right now." So right now, they could triple my rent tomorrow, and I would lose my business.
Yeah, no. When you made mention of that to me earlier, and I looked into it because I knew you were going to speak on it. Was first off, there are any states that have like a small business rent stabilization. One of the things that New York State just passed the law last year. Well, actually this year, at the top of this year, and that's something that I would definitely be looking at because one of the things, we know that small businesses are the largest employer of Maryland.
I'm a constituent and a small business owner.
Yeah. And then we also realize that, to your point, I think earlier you said that you see these businesses for a year and then they close down. But then closing down means that we lost the resources to whatever they were providing. We lost employment. And then also the business owners, we have a vacancy. And vacancies don't look good in neighborhoods. When we're riding through and we're looking for homes and stuff, we see a vacancy. That's not always the most appealing. But the trickle down effect, I don't understand. And so that would be
I
something.
can name 3 businesses within walking distance that this happened to.
Yeah, so that would be definitely something. And I'm so glad you spoke to me because that's something I want to pull into my
Were you
platform.
shocked?
I was, but not being a small business owner, it was a blind spot. That when you mentioned it, this is a conversation now and that I need to have with the small business owners in my district. Like, how are you feeling? What are you doing? And I know there's going to be a lot of pushback on that once I am the senator, because there's a lot of people who would be totally
people who own
against
the buildings are not going to be happy.
But my thing is the economy. is what I'm focused on, and saving you money. But also, if you have to raise your rent, that means the prices that you charge have to go up to make up that cost, which also means that I have to pay you more to get that service. So that's not keeping the money in my pocket. It's already enough that we're spending what we're spending on property taxes.
And the problem is with insurance, a lot of the building owners, they get compensated because of it, because they can do it as a write-off.
Yeah.
So they're not losing money by not having the businesses half the time.
Yeah, and then they're getting these big tax breaks
Right.
from the state. So we have to make sense. It has to make sense. And so for anyone, and it has to come down from the state. The county can do certain things, but that is a state problem that I would love to address or bring forth and rattle those. And what I do know is Maryland's biggest employer is small businesses. It's not the federal government, what many may think.
Right.
But and you see what we're dealing with the federal government cutting. We
Right.
cannot lose our small businesses, or we're going to be in a world of trouble. And even areas in Prince George's County. I mean, this is probably going to be a really interesting conversation in a legislative room, because you have these big.
Oh, I can't wait to call you afterwards. I mean, off the record, Antonio, right?
You have these big establishments lining, whatever. They were going to donate $100,000 to your campaign, but you cannot support this bill, hey. But if it's right, it's right.
I know. That's going to be hard, though.
No,
not for you. You have enough integrity. I just think it's interesting watching people put in that position.
Yeah.
Do you like your job? Like, you're kind of like, it's a hard place.
When it's for the people, though, because at the end of the day, the people decide. No matter, and I've seen campaigns where they've had $55 million and one person had $1 million in their campaign, but it was people focused and people driven, and those are the people who make the decisions.
What do you think would be your top 3 platforms?
Well, the economy, of
Right.
course. The education system. We need fully funded schools. As I was a teacher this year, and I had a class, 37 students, mixed. And what I mean by mixed is special ed and English language, and I had to deal with everything in this classroom and still teach the students. How effective could I have been? So we need fully funded schools, education and economy, and small businesses. Small businesses, yes.
I mean, because I think there's so much room for growth down there.
Yeah, it is.
I think they're lucky to have you, and I'm excited to see what you do with this, because you're coming from a different perspective than I already know. You know what I mean? Like, so that'll be familiar for some people. What do you love about the area?
I love the people. The people are great. They're willing to talk to you about the issues. Some people are just they complain, but then they don't vote, or they don't. They're a part of the problem. I think people, like I said, there are neighborhoods now like, we're just gonna take this in our own hands, and we're gonna clean the streets up, or we're gonna call this, or we're gonna call our own line service in. But they're upset because they're spending $10,000 in property taxes, and it's like, well, this is what we get. They're already upset about the cost. We can't fix that, but can we at least make what we're paying for? Can we see what we're paying for?
Okay, well, thank you so much for doing this. So here's a few. What's literal next step for you? Like, what's next?
So I mean, we're just at the beginning of the campaign. The election isn't until June next year.
Okay,
June.
so what are you doing this weekend?
So this weekend, I'm going to my campaign manager's birthday party. So
And happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I am 27.
27 F?
Yes. I'm 30. I turned 37 last Monday, and going to my campaign manager's birthday when I leave here, and then it's out talking with the people, visiting churches, visiting small businesses and stuff like that. So it's just going to be a marathon of events. A lot of events coming out from me, so stay tuned, looking at whatever I put out on social media or on the website.
Nice. And here's something I've been asking everybody. I ask them in my chair, and I ask them in person, and now I'm asking them here. What does self-care look like for you right now when the world's so topsy-turvy?
Self-care for me is actually just sitting down at home by myself, watching TV, not watching TV, reflect, just turning off all of the busyness and like just getting lost into something else for a moment. Hanging with friends, talking about what's going on in their life. It's the small things for me. I don't necessarily need to be on the beach and with the sun or.
I mean, it doesn't hurt.
It doesn't. It doesn't. And it's great, but I think you got to take those small wins, especially when you have such a crazy schedule. So self-care for me is like just turning off the world and just being in my own nest. You know?
Well, thank you so much for being our initiation guest, and thank you so much for coming and talk to me. You know, I always love and support you. Absolutely. So I'm glad you're doing well.
Thank you so much.
And good luck. I think you're going to do well.
Thank you.